Now,
Befriended me on Facebook.
Facebook status getting on Facebook, getting on Twitter.
a show helping to expose the power of social media.
You can go on Facebook.
Say you write on Facebook. On Facebook.
This is the Tonya Hall Show.
My Facebook account was deleted by the man.
Now, here's Tonya Hall.
Welcome to the Tonya Hall Show, where we embrace the power of social media, everything happening on the World Wide Web, and how the internet is actually changing our lives. We talk about news and media. We talk about events across the world, the latest and greatest in tech startups, including how as marketers we're using the web and how we're engaging with a new landscape of connecting to customers, whether it's retention, loyalty, acquisition, whatever we talk about here on the show. Of course, everybody this morning is probably glued to your second screen or third screen or your TV screen, maybe your mobile device, following the events that are taking place and have over in Boston area, whether it's Watertown or just that entire area. So our hearts are certainly go out for that community. Many of our friends of the show are out there and certainly scared and apprehensive. They are looking for, as you probably know, the second suspect in the Boston Marathon bombings. And they're following, it's really interesting to follow this on social media. I was up candidly all night long following this on Twitter and Facebook and Reddit, and just looking at the different media outlets and how traditional media is engaging with social media, and how this idea of whether you're first or more accurate, there's certainly been in the last couple of days a lot of misinformation. And with Twitter, certainly you get information very quickly, but is it always accurate? And how do you vet that information? And it's funny, Jeff Cutler, who has been on the show, and we've talked about this before, and I were talking, and he was even saying on Twitter this morning to the chief marketing officer, Mike Volpe at HubSpot, which is out in Boston, that there really needs to be some sort of rating system for, maybe like a cred or a clout for journalists. To know that what information you're getting, because candidly, and I'm not going to say who it was, but there were some major mainstream media outlets that were misreporting, and you probably know who they are, but you can certainly do the research on your own. And very bad information was also being shared in that addresses of people's homes. And another funny comment was made by Jeff was is there a timeout for journalists, because blank journalist needs to actually be put in the corner because of the ethics that journalists undergo. So then there's this conversation too. Do journalists have a different set of guidelines than just everybody else that's tweeting and putting out information? One of the reporters was told to use Reddit, and he said, "Sounds like a great idea." What's a Reddit? It's also getting traditional journalists to understand how to use social media. Once this all unfolds, we're going to cover this on the show. We're going to talk about the difference in reporting and what that means. And as a consumer, how do we respond to that? And sometimes it affects us in business as well. I mean, look at what happened with Chick-fil-A and many other businesses who have had to kind of conquer a PR nightmare, if you will, and being Reddit for. Ford was a great example, probably most recently, with the advertising, the bondage advertising that came out that they didn't support. Scott Monty and team, those guys handled it incredibly well. It was very impressive how Ford responded, and quickly that issue went away. And when you are prepared, that's exactly what happens. Our guest today is Peter Krainik. Peter Krainik is the founder and CEO of the CMO Club. And the CMO Club is a very exclusive club that is for CMOs to let their hair down, if you will, open up dialogue and share conversations. Peter's been on the show before. I'm a huge fan of the CMO Club and the kinds of things that they're doing and moving forward. Welcome, Peter, to the show.
Thanks, Tonya. It's good to be here.
So I know you're following what's happening to our friends out in Boston. We certainly think about them this morning, and if we see any changes, we'll update you guys. Certainly, if you're paying attention to the show and you're distracted with your second screen with us right now, we appreciate your time. Peter, CMO Club, how long has I'm trying to remember because we've had you on the show several times. How long has the CMO Club been founded?
It's been around about 6 years now. I was a CMO, head of marketing myself, I guess about six and a half years ago, and just got tired of going to lousy CMO events, so started hosting dinners for peers, kind of a self-help group for CMOs, and started as a labor of love, and after about 6 months had 30 or 40 CMOs saying, Pete, this is really good. So quit, formed the club about 6 years ago now, and have been, helping it ever since.
And it's continuing to grow. You were telling me this morning that you're up 100 new members this last year. Is that right?
Correct. We're at about 700 members. And to be a member, you're either a CMO or the most senior marketing person for your company. Or, for example, if you're Unilever and you run marketing for all the U.S. At a VP, SVP level, you can be in the club. That's kind of the ground rules. And if you sell predominantly to marketers, you can't be a member. So if you're an agency, PR firm, marketing services provider, platform provider, you cannot be a member.
Well, and that's I think what makes part of certainly the foundation of what makes the CMO Club work is that it's really allowing CMOs, chief leaders in marketing at companies who are able to really let their hair down and ask their peers.
Right.
It's the ultimate networking group for marketing.
I agree. And we don't, what's been interesting is as the club grows and more big brands are involved, et cetera, there's more pressure from the outside to get involved. And even things like media and things like that, we had a big event last week in New York. We had 100 some CMOs there for 2 days. We didn't have press, and because we want people to feel safe and secure that they can openly talk about their challenges and issues and not worry about their CEO saying that they think their CEO is an idiot or something, for example.
And I'm sure those conversations take place. We're going to try to get some scoop out of you today, but certainly nothing to jeopardize the credibility for anybody. I want to talk about really why are the best CMOs different? How do they continue to be better at what they're doing, especially with the changing landscape that we have today? Our guest, Peter Krainik, who is the founder and CEO of the CMO Club, is joined us. We're going to be talking a lot about the CMO program and what the findings are, including how to effectively sell to a CMO. But probably wanted to know that. Stay tuned to the Tonya Hall Show. We'll be right back.
Hey, lady. Yeah, you, the one that runs the office. It's me, Dilbert, the Dust Bunny. Now look down at your desk or on your computer monitor. Maybe on the floor. That's where you'll find me and my buddies. Hey, we're starting to take over the office because those so-called cleaning people you got, well, let's just say they're not getting the job done. In fact, they don't do much at all.
Sound like your office? It's time for the Key People. The Key People's unparalleled office cleaning. Call today for a free quote, 1-800-468-8283, or check them out at thekeypeople.com. The Key People, where there's a plan for every budget. Interested in starting a great second income? Get in touch with the company. Start your own janitorial business. Experience is required, and there is a setup fee. You could be servicing companies in your area right now. Call 1-800-468-8283, doing the common uncommonly well for over 35 years. That number again is 1-800-468-8283 and online at thekeypeople.com.
That Place Colorado, the Tri-Towns Teen Community Center for homework help, community outreach, and service. Arts, fine and performing, as well as fitness and wellness classes. All free to high school students living or attending school in Dacono, Frederick, or Firestone. Find us on the website at thatplacecolorado.com and on Facebook.
Small business owners, do you need a website presence for your business? 50 Plus Biz Sites offers turnkey solutions to meet your budget requirements. They offer their microsite with 1 or 2 web pages, their standard websites, or their custom website packages, all at very affordable prices. Call today, 303-694-5512. 303-694-5512.
The broader stock market is higher as Google and Microsoft gain on earnings. From Bloomberg World Headquarters in New York, I'm Mark Mills. Most stocks are higher this morning, with the S&P 500 index rebounding from a 6-week low as companies from Google to Microsoft reported earnings that topped analyst forecasts. Google and Microsoft gaining at least 2.4%. IBM, the biggest computer services provider, tumbling 6.5% after quarterly profit missed projections for the first time since 2005. McDonald's slumping 1.9% as it said soft global demand has continued this month. General Electric fell the most since 2011 after a first-quarter slide in its power and water business pulled total industrial earnings down 11%, GE down 4%. Dow Jones Industrials are down 41 points, 0.3% at 14,495, much of that due to IBM's big drop today. S&P 500 is up 0.5%, 7 points at 1549. The Nasdaq's up 1%, 30 points at 3196. 10-year note down 5/30 seconds at 1.7%. That's a Bloomberg Market Minute.
And now a check of the temperature at the Denver International Airport. The current temperature is 40 degrees, which is 4 degrees Celsius.
The Tonya Hall Show, where we embrace the web, everything happening and how we're using the internet to promote our business. Certainly the talk today is about the leaders in business, and that is the leaders in marketing business. Our guest, Peter Krainik, who is the founder and CEO of the CMO Club, is joining us to give a little peek into behind the curtain, if you will, of what's happening at the CMO Club, the conversations that are taking place, and how to be the best CMO and what the characteristics of the best CMO are. You and I were talking on break, Peter, because what the CMO Club event was that like a week ago? You just finished the summit in New York, right?
Yeah, we do 2 summits a year. We have dinners in 20 cities, like every 2 months in every city, so like 5 a year per city. But we do 2 bigger events, one in the spring in the East Coast and the fall on the West Coast. And we just finished our New York event a week ago.
And you always have these little secret things that happen. So there's, first off, it's a great event. I want to get into the meat of what the conversations that were taking place and the topics that were discussed. But I have to say, maybe not the most important thing, but I'm kind of kicking myself for not actually going because Cyndi Lauper was there. And everybody that knows me knows I love 80s. And who's more iconic from the 80s than Cyndi Lauper, right?
Yeah, she was great. We like what we do. You know, they're there. I mean, they're serious, right? They're getting their help for solving their problems and doing that. But the club, it's all about building relationships, right? It's all about, and what better way than have artists show up and surprise them to help share, but not only just perform, but then spend time with them. So you know, the CMOs were so interested. I mean, Cyndi was just phenomenal. And then afterwards or before, to chat with CMOs about her brand and what she's done and how she's reinvented herself. She's got some kinky boots starting on Broadway. She's got, you know, she did a jazz record, do we even call them records? I just date myself, whatever. Yeah.
We knew what you meant.
You know,
yeah.
A couple months ago and things like that. So that's really a big piece of it as well. But it was so interesting to see Cyndi meet Fred Neil from the Home Depot before, and to get in a conversation where Cindy's asking Fred, how come they don't have the certain antique wallpaper in your stores? I need it, you know. And then talking to Paula Piolo from Michaels, finding out why their cotton ball is not in the right section. You know, it was just very funny. She was like a mom. You know, she was a mom having conversation with these people. It cracked me up.
Well, you know, and Margaret Malloy, who was on the show, I think last Tuesday, just spoke really highly of Cyndi as a woman in business, if you will. It's the business of entertainment, but how she's just such a strong example. And I really respect Margaret's opinion. And I feel like I'm kicking myself that I didn't get a chance to meet her. But a lot of great things, I think, happened and came out of the summit this year. And sure. Margaret certainly shared some of them on the show. What was the big overall cloud of conversation? What is the big question that kept coming up at the summit?
Well, I think there's one thing that so we've had probably 6 or 7 summits now, so for the last 3 or 4 years, and to watch it grow from 30 to 40 to 60 to 80 now over 100 heads of marketing. The tenure is changed. You know, everyone was talking to a couple of years ago. It was 18 months and then 22, whatever. And regardless, you know, now it's up I think this thing 40 some months. But what was interesting is to see that the CMOs, it's there was less concern about I have to keep my job to how do I engage with consumers more effectively, and how do I build credibility with my CEO and these types of things. But it was not around job preservation. It was more around the business is looking to me, right? Because of social media, because of these things, I'm now in the crosshairs, I'm needed now more than ever, right, to be the expert on customer engagement, our customer base, new segments, social media, et cetera. So there was an excitement versus kind of a woe is me a little bit versus a couple of years ago. So that was one thing. I think the biggest thing for me that I found interesting, and again, these are CMOs, so these are CMO-worthy conversations. They're not looking at, if they have directors, manager, other levels doing certain execution things, they're not looking at campaign ideas and things. They're looking at, leadership ideas or this. And one is this whole concept of leading the brand beyond the marketing department. How do I, as a CMO, how do we get the entire business, because of social media, because of the world today, how do we get everyone in the business behind the brand, understanding it, being able to articulate it, but then equally importantly, understand how we as a company define acceptable customer service, customer engagement. So there was a lot of conversations around that where people went off. Like I mentioned Paula Pullitt-Michaels. I saw at one point she's meeting with Nancy Smith at iRobot, and they're actually talking about just that conversation. Or you see, there were lots of one-off conversations about that topic.
You mentioned this in your kind of description of the kinds of things that they talked about, maybe last year or the year before as it's been building up. But still, this is a problem. And so I'm going to bring it up. The idea that the leadership in front of the CMO, maybe the president, the CEO, just still doesn't really know or understand how important. Maybe they get that there's a social media team that needs to happen within under the umbrella of the organization. Right. Or hire an agency. But there are still some pretty big Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies out there. And I get calls from their marketing people as well, or their social media people. And the frustration is still they don't get it, and they don't really have a solid strategy. Is that still a part of the conversation inside the club?
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. It's still it's not just tied to social media. That's one aspect, but it's the CMOs that are most successful have that relationship with their CEO and board to either support them or, equally important, get out of the way and let them do what they want to do. I think some of the best CMOs that I see at dinner and stuff at handling that, they have a clear understanding of the CEO's top issues. What are your top specific issues? Is it we need to expand into China, or we need to turn this segment around, whatever it is? And that every conversation they have with them then is around that. They don't try to sell them on social. They don't try to sell them. They say, okay, boss, here's the problem we have to solve. Here's our 4 steps to do it. Boom, boom, boom. And, by the way, engaging with advocates through social media is one of the pieces. It sounds oversimplified, but it's a difficult thing to do, but that's one of the things the best are doing. But, yeah, it's still an issue. Absolutely still an issue.
Well, and the role of marketing, Peter, is to support the goals of the organization, whatever that goal might be, whether it's focusing on new product development or expansion, if you will, to new markets or whatever that is. And so really, as you pointed out, digital marketing, social media, whatever we're calling it today, has to support that. And as a chief marketer, you have to understand how does it fit in with the overall goals of the organization. You've actually got a lot of different interesting conversations, and you and I talked about some things that we want to talk. One is what really makes the best CMO? I mean, how are the best CMOs different? What's the answer to that?
Well, the answer is obviously they spend time in the CMO club. No, that was a joke. I think I think that the one thing that comes to mind, Terry Graham, who just left Jack in the Box, he was CMO there just till recently, made a comment once, and I think it's so true. And I think it's courage and fearlessness. And again, not to sound corny, but to sit there and stand in the eye of the board and stand as a CEO when everyone thinks they're a marketing expert, even though no one has marketing background, and being fearless to stand up and and I don't mean demand, but to have that piece. So that's I think one trait when I see the best CMOs out there, the ones that are doing the best things. And then there's obviously other things. I mean, the ability to what I call being kind of in CMO, it's like the big O in CMO, acting as an officer. So when they're there, like you said it perfectly. They're there. I'm here, they say, to lead the growth agenda. That's what I'm here for. I'm not here to be the marketing guy. I'm not here to be the campaign person. I'm here to help lead the growth agenda. And here's what we need to do. Boom, 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 boom. CFO, you're not the one. CIO, you support, absolutely. Sales, you help deliver. But I'm here to help drive that. And I think the ones that think about it in that term and not about how do I get the next best campaign are the ones that do the best. And then, there's a couple of things. Obviously, having that credibility with the CEO is critical for success. What else? The ones that I mentioned earlier at the summit, another one that comes up is this whole issue of leading beyond the marketing department. So, for example, I'll give you an example. Phil Clement, CMO of Aon, member of the club, very bright. He did something a few years ago where he openly shared and built a relationship with employees all over the world through Facebook and built credibility with them to say, I need you guys to help share with me on some things. I'm going to run some ideas by you as an officer. You have my commitment. Anything that says here, it's not going to be held back. I want your feedback. And just by that openness and taking the risk, because it could have backfired, I'm not sure I'm explaining it in the right detail, but it's just phenomenal. He basically then had this whole group of Aon employees all over the world that just loved him and the fact that they made suggestions and they tweaked things because of it. And so there's an example of something that focused inward, not just outward. I think it's a big piece of it.
It is all about taking risk right now. We're going to talk about the risk that maybe agencies take when they try to promote our work with the CMO. Stay tuned to the Tonya Hall Show. We'll be right back.
Nice and easy Friday drive continues. This traffic report is brought to you by Garmin. Good speeds in and around Longmont, wherever you're trying to get to this morning. Not too bad if you're heading out towards I-25 on 119. Once you get there, it's going to be a nice drive northbound. You're heading up past Berthoud, Loveland, all the way into Fort Collins. No delays. Nice and dry finally. We've had such a slick week on the roads, and nice and dry conditions are out there. Southbound looks good down past Tacono. Seeing a little slowing as you make that drive through the Thornton and North Glen area. Usual stuff around 120th, a couple extra minutes if you're heading into the city of Denver. If you're on the Turnpike, westbound US 36, pretty slow past McCaslin. We had some earlier issues through the area, but just seeing some pockets of slow speeds. You make that drive up towards Boulder, a couple extra minutes on that drive. 287 looking good at this hour. 66 is a nice drive, as is 56 from Berthoud out towards I-25. Hey, traffic, don't be a hater. Get a Garmin Nuvi with subscription-free HD digital traffic. Avoid it with updates as often as every 30 seconds. Drive with Garmin, the most trusted name in GPS. For more information, go to sigalert.com. I'm Cub Buning, and that's traffic.
Hate traffic? Don't hate. Drive happy. Get a Garmin Nuvi with subscription-free HD digital traffic and avoid traffic and construction delays with updates delivered as often as every 30 seconds. Drive with Garmin, the most trusted name in GPS.
Here is your updated weather report from the RCN Weather Center. This morning, Denver can expect some sunshine, a light west breeze, that high warming up to 48. Into your evening, cloudy skies, a light southwest breeze, low at 29. Into your Saturday forecast tomorrow, some sunshine to begin. You could see a stray late day rain shower, the high warming up some more, high 52. By Saturday evening, maybe a stray early evening shower, ending the low by Sunday morning to 28. To end the weekend Sunday, more sunshine, a light breeze warming up some more. Sunday's high to 55. Front range weather is heard twice each hour here on AM 1060 The Biz, your trusted source for health and wealth information. I'm Dave Murs from the RCN Weather Center.
Brought to you by Bosch Appliances. Bosch Appliances are ranked highest in customer satisfaction with dishwashers by J.D. Power & Associates. Find great deals on ultra-quiet Bosch dishwashers at your local Bosch dealer.
Politicians are not kings. Let me say that again. Politicians are not kings. They're not superior to citizens, and their job is not to tell us the food we can eat, the soda we can buy, or how we should best defend ourselves. Who's to tell me how many bullets are enough to defend me during a rape? 1 bullet? 5 bullets? 10 bullets? How about as many as I need to stop the rape? These politicians, these bureaucrats, need to be reminded that we're all free to make our own decisions. We all have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And if guns aren't right for you, don't own one. but don't you dare tell me how to best defend myself. I'm Laura Carno, an ordinary Colorado citizen who believes in the Constitution. Join me at IamCreatedEqual.com. That's IamCreatedEqual.com. This message paid for by IamCreatedEqual.com.
1060 KRCN Longmont, Denver, The Biz. 1580 KREL Colorado Springs, Pueblo, ESPN.
The Well needs your help. Having recently moved to the area with the greatest need, between 2nd and 3rd Avenue on Main Street in Longmont, The Well was denied a permit to hold meetings because they might increase the homeless population in this block, rather than improve the situation for individuals in our community. Surrounding businesses signed petitions against The Well opening its doors to public meetings. While these businesses admit there is an existing problem, do they offer a solution? No, but The Well does provide help where needed. Please come and speak on behalf of The Well and their mission to help people in need at their appeal hearing with the City Council on May 7th at the Council Chambers located on Kimbark Street. For more information, call 720-935-0287. That's 720-935-0287. And show you care about your fellow citizens.
Taking a look at temperature conditions in Fort Collins, Colorado. Current temperature at the freezing mark, 32 degrees, 0 degrees Celsius.
Welcome back to the Tonya Hall Show, where we embrace the power of social media. Our guest right now is Peter Krainik. He is the founder and CEO of the CMO Club. I almost called you the CMO because that's all I think about when I'm seeing you. You are all over the world. You're just getting ready to launch, actually, in Europe. Now, I know you've had meetings there and you've been working a lot in Europe,
right?
But you're getting ready to officially launch the leadership program in Europe as well, right?
Correct. And what's been so wonderful to see is as the CMOs get engaged in the club and they like it, see the value, and they move into new jobs, they like to help. Like we just rolled out a chapter presidents program, obviously not paying them, where different CMOs are leading different chapters. And they've come forward and said, I want to be the head of this chapter to help, things like that. So there's a gentleman, Luis Gallardo, who was the CMO of Deloitte a couple of years ago out of Spain. He's left there recently and formed a friendship, and he's offered to really help build a team and start expanding. So we'll be expanding in Europe in July. And then I did some research, and, if you look at Central and Eastern Europe, they have nothing like this. But marketing has only been around for 20 years. So it's a great opportunity to go and start, sharing a community there too as well. So those are two of the places we'll be looking at starting in July. So life is good.
Life is good. You have some of the smartest and brightest members in your club. And I say that because I know some of them and I'm friends with them and I work with some of them. Evan Green, who is I think he's the chapter leader for you out in California, right?
Yeah, he runs the chapter. He's the CMO of the Recording Academy, and he handles the LA chapter. Correct.
He is a really smart guy. I'm going to give him a shout out. Very smart, very bright. And again, the people that are in the club are looking to improve their business. They're in this mindset of growth, and they're in a place where they really want to make things better. And they're looking for other people to help them. And certainly some of those conversations are inside the club. How many chapters do you have?
So we have 20 now in the U.S., 20 chapters. And then, like I said, we host dinners every 2 months in every city.
Dinners every 2 months. So it's not overly taxing, but it's a good time to get together, bring your questions and visit. But I think, one of the things that I think is important to remember too is not only are they looking internally, the CMOs, right, for the best conversations and to be able to just share the challenges that they're having, but it's also the challenge to find the right external partner. So you've got the agencies that you want to partner with, whether it's PR or digital or whatever those needs are. And from the agency perspective, they want to get in front of the best in business. They want to get in front of the right CMOs. So I guess the question is, what does an agency need to understand to effectively sell to a CMO?
Right. It's a really interesting question, and it comes up quite a bit in CMO club dinners about the ones that do it right or don't. And every now and then we'll have programs where we may invite someone in to speak at a dinner or lead, and it's not a pay to play. It's we think someone's great at X, we invite them in. But it's always interesting to see who gets it and who doesn't. And a lot do, but there are a couple of things. So these are just kind of my observations. One thing that turns CMOs off is when you start the conversation by saying, I'm not here to sell you, I'm not here to sell you, and then you turn around and sell them. I mean, people don't assume these people are dumb. They get it, and they get hit on all the time. But it just cracks me up the amount of times people come in and do that. You know, they say, I'm not here to sell you, that tune and say they've got slide 3 with 700 words talking about how they sub-optimize, blah, 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 or optimize. So that's one. I think the other thing that my advice would be is I would focus on, if you're a company that does 10 things, focus on the one that's going to get their attention to solve their problem. They want their problem solved. And then build a relationship with them, and then they can learn more about what you do. If you come in and say, well, we can do X, Y, Z, A, B, F, then they just kind of gloss over. I think that's another interesting one. And then back to this problem solve, right? I think it's understand every conversation you have with them, just like CMOs with their CEOs, every conversation you have with a CMO is about solving and it's got to be a CMO-worthy problem. They're not going to care if it's, we can reduce shipping costs by 4% here, then they'll give that off to someone else, that type of thing. Another thing that I find really interesting is I call it the currently employed syndrome. It's interesting to see CMOs in big jobs, and they leave jobs, and all of a sudden, all these alleged friends of theirs that are in the agency PR world go away because they're not technically working, they're not working in a job right now. Well, 4 or 6 months later, they get another big job, and everyone comes back. So I think it's just like the world today, right? It's authenticity, it's real, it's having those relationships, I think. Those are a few that come to mind.
You guys actually even have a vendor rating program. So you're sharing, it's not just about how to approach one personality, one brand, one industry. It's literally shared information about what you think about all the different vendors, whether it's software technology or an agency. How does that work? I mean, how do you rate the different agencies out there?
Well, it's interesting. It literally started in Boston about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. We're having a chapter dinner, and someone had gone around the room and asked people different things and put a little spreadsheet together with like 6 or 8 names and from that it grew to the point of saying, well, let's do that. So we actually have, it's a Yelp, it's a TripAdvisor, kind of format for CMOs to rate. What really, though, when I say rate, it's really more recommendations. There are some, but it's a very small subset of the entries, and these are only for CMOs in the cloud behind the password-protected site. And they have to have had a contract with them in the last 18 months, and they have to be willing to have another CMO reach out to them if they want more information. So it's really more of a recommendation. So whether it's digital, mobile, PR, branding, whatever MRM, whatever the tools are, who do they recommend? And more CMOs are using them. We had literally at the summit alone last week, we had 25 or 30 CMOs make recommendations while they were there into the system for members to use. So it's really catching on. CMOs are really enjoying it, and it's a clear example of the more participation, the more valuable it is for the members.
And you do create a lot of content. The vendor rating program is just one component of, internally for those on the outside. You guys have all kinds of surveys and transcripts of the dinners, and of course you've got your summits, and I know there's a lot of additional content coming towards the CMOs to help them, participate, do better, share information, and some exciting stuff coming. Okay. Yeah. Let's just look at this as an idea. You talked about when you founded the CMO Club and how many people you have contributing, and then how many members have grown the club. You've got leaders of different chapters. Right. How hard is it to really create a community like the CMO Club across a physical, and digital landscape?
Well, I mean, I think if the question is broader than CMOs, but to create a community, I think it's in some aspects it's easier than ever. In some aspects it's more difficult. But I'm a firm believer in having, and again, look, it's been 2 steps forward, 1 step back, right? It's been really learn, focus, drive, next step, learn, things like that. We expanded in a couple cities and pulled back because they weren't the right cities. We've done, different things over the years. I think, to me, that the key thing is right from day one, don't assume when you're creating a chip. So let's go back when I was head of marketing at Avaya, for example. We have all these different, user group communities, and different companies have them. And taking a step back and thinking, how do you pull those together? And I think it's getting those advocates early on involved that believe in it, understand what you're trying to do, and have them help shape it. I think it still amazes me. I feel like because I've gone to most of the dinners and know hundreds of CMOs, I feel like in my mind I know more about what CMOs do than anybody. But every now and then I'll still be just surprised where I think something is going to work, and I'll put some program together, a piece of content, put a subgroup together, and no one cares. Whereas I thought it would be a home run. So it's constantly having them help shape it, and then going and being free to go the direction they want. I know that sounds like maybe oversimplified, but I think that's a big piece. I think the physical and the digital is critical. I felt like within the club, we started with the physical because you have this face-to-face, you build the relationships, people saw the value in dinners, they built, and then you start sharing digitally, and then it becomes more a tool for sharing. It's really content curation, not content creation. I think that's another piece. I mean, I think the last thing is, let's see, I'm trying to think here. It's mixing business and pleasure, right? No matter what you're doing, people are still human beings, and think about what builds relationships. And if it's, what was it they say, was it kitties and dogs and whatever, kitties and cats on video still work? I mean, I'm not suggesting that's the answer, but letting people get to know each other a little bit. We're in the process right now of continuing to change the site to make it more personal, so it looks less just business. Even though business is getting done, people want to know. We've had people who are so interesting, side benefits of the club. People now are having their children that are in intern positions with other CMOs. We actually create a little section where, I'm a CMO in Dallas, and I have a daughter that's graduating or needs a summer internship, and they're helping each other. That's all based on relationship.
I love it. I love this idea of not only are you mentoring each other as a peer relationship, but you've also got mentoring outside of the club. I want to talk about that and what we're seeing from maybe younger generations, what CMOs might be learning from the kids that are coming into the workforce. Stay tuned to the Tonya Hall Show. We'll be right back. Follow us on Twitter at Tonya Hall Radio. Our Facebook, go to Tonya Hall. We'll be right back.
LRC is really hot. I found out we shared Christian values. That was one of the major factors that helped me make my decision.
I was already in a profit, $2,000 or $3,000 when I got your coins.
I really trust Scott.
It's ridiculous to go anyplace else and buy your coins. I'm just very happy with you guys. Very, very happy with you guys.
LRCcoins.com.
Call LRC Coins at 1-888-551-2646.
Hi, this is the Wizard. Are you having success trading in today's stock market? Boy, it's been difficult. But if you're like the rest of us, we could all use a little help in terms of education, ideas, and guidance on when and how to pull the trigger for maximum return on trades. Maybe you're someone who's decided the old hold and hope mentality worked in the old days, no longer appropriate for your portfolio. As a result, Winning on Wall Street has come up with a fantastic new product to help you, the trader and investor. We've created a virtual online trading room where our master traders are trading their own personal accounts. You get to watch, listen, learn, and earn for yourself. The sense of community in the trading room is as valuable as the stock pick and ideas and education. We're all in this together. We really are, in life, in the universe, on the planet. So please join us in the Winning on Wall Street trading room. Call the Wiz for membership details, 303-442-6075, or go to our website, winningonwallstreet.com. Help us help you navigate the maze called Wall Street.
Hey, it's Brian Baker, host of The Gold Standard, inviting you to check out my show where we talk about what's happening in precious metals markets, how to go about properly saving for retirement, and what's going on in the global economy as it relates to you. And get this, we do it all without a bunch of doom and gloom. I know, it's refreshing, right? It's The Gold Standard with me, Brian Baker. Hope you get a chance to check out the show.
Our broadcast of The Gold Standard with Brian Baker airs 3 p.m. weekdays on 1060 The Biz.
Most stocks climb on earnings. From Bloomberg World Headquarters in New York, I'm Donna Wilson. Most U.S. stocks rose, with the Standard & Poor's 500 index rebounding from a 6-week low, as companies from Google to Microsoft reported earnings that topped analysts' forecasts. Google and Microsoft gained at least 2.4%, but IBM tumbled 6.5% after quarterly profit missed projections for the first time since 2005. McDonald's slumped 1.9% today, as it said soft global demand has continued this month. The Dow fell 24 points to 14,513. S&P 500 index rose 0.6% to 1551, and the Nasdaq gained 1.1% to 3202. The Labor Department says payrolls fell in 26 states in March, showing the recent labor market slowdown is being felt across the country. The jobless rate also dropped in 26 states last month. That's a Bloomberg Market Minute.
Looking at temperature conditions around the region in Colorado Springs, where right now it's 37 degrees, 3 degrees Celsius.
Welcome back to the Tonya Hall Show, where we embrace the power of the web. Everything that's happening on the internet, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, digital marketing, blogging, you name it. We're talking about it on the show. And today we're focusing in on the CMO, focusing in on the leaders of marketing with our guest, Peter Krainik, who is the founder of the CMO Club. And we talked right before we went to break about this idea that the CMOs are mentoring young people and getting engaged. And there's such a, there's always been generation gaps, right? But there's such a vast difference between the mindset of young, future CMOs today and the CMOs of today. And you were sharing with me on break just kind of how young people and younger generation marketers, and I'm not trying to age differentiate, but just this new generation, if you will, of marketers, whether we're reinventing ourselves or we're just entering the workforce, are really embracing digital technology and the ways that we market. You were talking about being at the IBM conference, right, Peter?
Yeah, it was just what I found interesting was, first, just a quick comment on that. I was thinking about that after you said that, kind of leading into the break. And what I found is the again, getting back to the good versus great CMOs, this whole notion, it comes up every now and then, this whole notion of, well, the 20-year-olds are lazy, they feel self-entitled, all this stuff. And it's so interesting. My view is every generation has had their version of something, and the amount of massively bright people I see as well, and I think the CMOs that are doing really well and leading teams effectively aren't caught up in worrying about that. They're not. They don't think in those terms. They're like, these are bright people that care. How do I motivate them? How do I, mentor them? How do I take advantage of what they have? And I think it's a huge point. It's so interesting to see. We talked about Evan Green. He had one of his younger people in. We had a dinner in L.A. 6-8 months ago, talking before the Grammys, talking about how they're using mobile. And Evan said, look, Pete, I'd like to bring this person in because they're really in the weeds, give them a little credit. There's like 18 CMOs at the table. And it just blew everyone away. The interest level in it's interesting. It's like CMOs care about the strategic, and they care about, okay, if I am blogging, if I am tweeting, if I am using Facebook, how do I really do it right? And everyone thinks they do it right, but how do I really do it? What types of tips and tricks and stuff? So it's a very interesting dynamic to watch that.
Well, and I bet this conversation comes up at the club, but is it important for the chief marketing person to be on social media themselves with their own brand. I know many of the members of your club are, and some are less active. Is that important? Does that make a difference in the bottom line?
Absolutely. I think so. I think absolutely, because it's almost like going back 20 years and saying, I've never read a newspaper, I've never read magazines. I don't watch TV ever, so how do I know about how my commercial is going to play, how that? I mean, I'm not saying it's an advertising age now, but I'm saying it's that same thing, right? I mean, I think you have to be active to understand and to learn, and it doesn't necessarily mean you're tweeting 12 times a day or you have this, but just to understand what it's about. One of the things, you just thought of something. I mentioned Nancy Smith, CMO of iRobot. She did something very interesting. This is a robotics, they have, what is it called, the Roomba, I think I butchered the name, the robotic vacuum cleaner. But they do lots of other things. She actually put outside the CEO's office and where all the C's levels are, she actually put a huge board up to show the Twitter feeds for iRobot users and really made it extra large on purpose. And she said it was amazing, the impact, just for the other C-levels to see, because they're thinking like everything's great and why are we doing this product, and they're seeing people complain about a certain thing or people love a certain thing. It's had a huge impact. So I think it's important. I think it's absolutely important.
I think it's so helpful that to a marketer who is really trying to understand. I mean, we conduct focus groups. We certainly take in surveys. We try to understand what our customers thinking. But I think it is a completely different experience to actually be in the community itself, listening to what customers are saying, getting a gauge for the temperature of the conversation, and taking that back to your team and helping them, giving them your feedback. I think it is critical, and it's time consuming. I get it, but it doesn't have to be, and it can certainly be something that you can figure in. And I think your CMOs probably talk a lot about that as well. You have, I want to mention it because I don't want to run out of time. You've got the Fall Summit coming up in Los Angeles in October. What is it that you're planning to do? I mean, you'll be nearly through this year. What is it going to be on the mindsets of the CMOs for that event? What do they want to know?
Well, it's interesting. We talk to them, and what the summits have evolved to, we call them Innovation and Inspiration Summits. So half the event, I'm not saying literally half, but I mean the focus is on innovation. So CMO-worthy conversations on how to create innovative environments, to how to create environments to be flexible, to change, to innovation in mobile, innovation in social, whatever, people sharing. That type of thing. And then the inspiration side of it. We ended our summit last week with 4 CMOs talking about how they stay inspired. How do they stay motivated in environments when you're getting beaten up? I mean, not unique to CMOs, anyone, at a C level. And it was one of the most popular sessions there. People just loved it. So it's about that. So, there's things, interesting things. We're already having 20-some CMOs lined up to speak. Into lead sessions. It's more breakout than a lot of keynotes and stuff. But it's interesting to see they're interested in group problem solving. So they say, okay, I have a problem around loyalty. How do we move from paying from loyalty to matching loyalty and advocates, et cetera? So there's a session on that. For example, there's a number of CMOs in the B2B space that are more CMO, CIO interested. They want to have work sessions with CIOs that were there on how do you work more effectively together. Agency CMO relationships, right? I mean, that's taken such a change. There's a lot of interest around these things. So those are just, we're 5 months away. It's evolving based on the interest. I think we should have, with the growth, 125 to 150 CMOs will be there. That's my guess, given the growth.
What has been one of the biggest surprises for you as being a leader of this organization, from the standpoint of what you didn't expect? What's the big surprise in moving this forward?
I would say the biggest surprise, a great question, and this means I have to admit I made a mistake, which bothers me. I'm kidding. I'd say the biggest mistake, or the biggest thing I learned, was we created this, password-protected environment under the guise of everyone comes back here to get data, to share profiles, to ask questions. And what I'm finding is the power of the group is not the platform. The power of the group is the group. So one of the things, these are busy people. So we're going to, what's interesting is, my advice to be others, if you're creating communities and these types of things, use the technology, use the Facebooks or the LinkedIn's or the, whatever is appropriate for what you need. Control it I don't mean control it, it didn't come out right. Secure it if it's just for those members, and don't get so caught up on driving everyone back to your stuff, because people are busy. They have 1,000 things going on. They don't want to have to get out of this to come over here so they can reach out to a fellow CMO. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's one thing that we're really looking at pretty deeply right now.
Well, and that's a big challenge for a lot of businesses, is trying to understand, where do I create my community? Is my community on my platform? Is the community something that I reach out and conduct? And I think we've talked a lot about that, Peter, and I think you guys are doing a great job of understanding and evolving the club forward. Right. I think I'm pretty excited about the fall summit. So I know you always have a secret kind of surprise that Cyndi Lauper was obviously, I think, a little bit of a surprise. Is there a surprise planned in October?
Absolutely.
Can you just whisper in my ear right here. Tell me what it is.
I'm not going to tell you. I can't tell you. I can't tell you. It's what's interesting is we have to keep the bar keeps getting higher and higher and higher, and we also do things for the CMOs where we had at the end of a long day of working, where we put them in environments to just have some fun. So we had a CMO fashion show as well. So we had 5 men and 5 women and 5 female male CMOs that were not fashion models, but we actually brought in some of Ellie Lang, this famous stylist, a few others, and we actually treated them like models, and they actually did a fashion show. So we've done Dancing with the CMOs, we've done CMO Comedy Jam, and a few other things. So now I've got to come up with something else for the CMOs to do as well.
Well, I feel a CMO reality show coming on. Peter, we are totally out of time, but it's always a pleasure having you come on the show. I'm really excited about what you're doing, and the members of your club certainly have the best ideas in moving business forward. Thanks again for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
I loved it. Thanks. Great talking with you again.
Absolutely, as always. That was Peter Krainik. He is the founder of the CMO Club. He is also the CEO of the CEO Club. And moving forward, as I mentioned, they are going to be launching in Europe. They have their fall summit. If you missed New York, but you're interested in getting engaged with the club, you don't have to wait until fall, but they do have the fall summit coming up in October. In the meantime, there are a variety of different chapters, and depending on where you live, if you want to get involved, you can reach out to me. Everybody, have a great weekend.